Hey all and welcome back for another HellfireComms quick look, and indeed the start of a brand new HellfireComms playthrough. It's time for a musical celebration of one of my favourite video game franchises. It's Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, and not only do I have Tanner here, I also have Richie, because now that THD's gone on to do better things, quote unquote, I need a new Kingdom Hearts commentator, so here we are.
Yeah, and I mean, I am like completely a Kingdom Hearts nut now, so I mean I've been a Kingdom Hearts nut for a while, but yeah, if you need some Kingdom Hearts goodness, I'm always a go-to guy on that front.
What about you, Tanner? Where do you fall on the spectrum of non-fan to hyped?
Well, it's interesting because literally my first time experiencing Kingdom Hearts was the original HellfireComms playthrough of it back in the day.
Oh.
So this is kind of like, it's a little bit of a huge moment coming around to like, you know, being here and actually being a part of it. So, because I never had a PlayStation as a kiddo, so I was the one playing all those Nintendo spin-offs, and that's very confusing.
Aww.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I was also introduced to, well, I don't know if I was fully introduced to Kingdom Hearts, but yeah, I've been here with HellfireComms since that first Kingdom Hearts playthrough, so...
This is all very heartwarming, but I'd much rather jam out to the very jazzy and latest version of Dearly Beloved. Ugh. Let's just take a moment and vibe here.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, that's enough vibing. We got a quick look to record here. Thank you, Gold Member, for commissioning this and indeed getting the playthrough off the ground. Now, I am using a new capture card. We've been futzing with it. If there are any problems, I apologise. I'll try and get those ironed out as we go on. I'm totally going to get B off of YouTube if I leave this unmuted in the final video.
Yeah, The Joys of Simple and Clean. Wonderful song, amazing part of the franchise. It is iconic, but obviously the way in which YouTube reacts to it sometimes is a little bit finicky. I mean, I took the approach whenever I did my playthroughs of Kingdom Hearts games, whenever pretty much any of the theme songs were played, of just, you know, talking over the top of them, because generally that allowed me to bypass the curse of the copyright content ID blocks. Not all the time, doesn't always work, but frequently it does, and you know that is part of the reason why I'm just still talking, because no one's deciding to interrupt me yet. And
see, on my end, when I did the Let's Play of Kingdom Hearts 3 there, which features a couple of its own lyrical themes, I just took the L and said, you know what, fine, no monetization, and if you live in Japan, you need a VPN. There's probably many YouTubers who have free codes for them, so just cop one of those. I'm sure Johnny has one this week or something.
Yeah, those VPNs do turn up a lot of sponsored videos.
There we go. I missed a few notes, but it's not ranking me, so who gives a shit, really? Welcome to Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. If you're expecting A+++, you're probably on the wrong channel.
Although, with that said, I am fully expecting at least a few A+++s throughout this journey.
I'll do my best, mate, but with you two waffling and me trying to listen to the beat underneath you, yeah, that might be a bit tricky. I think you mentioned in our first run through this, probably one of the worst types of games to let's play, really. 'Tis a rhythm game.
Well, to let's play live, certainly, when you've got two fellow commentators, and also, you know, when you're trying to talk as well, because, oh boy!
Now, what you saw over Simple and Clean was what's known as a memory dive. This is a field battle. There's also another thing for bosses. Not really many bosses in the game, which is a little bit disappointing, but we've a ways to go before we get to that. We've got to play through Destati first, Dive into the Heart. This was also the tutorial in the demo version, which I played a hell of a lot of, and honestly, I'm really happy to be here playing the full version of the game now, because people have complained at $60 dues, but I see a lot of replay value there, because there's 150 songs, each has 3 difficulties, there's tons of collectibles, to get. There's missions in World Tour, which is basically story mode. Bit of an oxymoron, really, because there's not really any new story until like 8 hours in, which is basically the ending. But, you know, Nomura came straight out and said it's not a story-heavy thing, like, even before we got the game, so I can't blame him for that.
Yeah, I mean, my approach to sort of, is this value for money, is that, so by the time that I was finished playing the game, so I think the pure story was about 8 hours, with playing all 150 songs in the game on standard mode, that took me up to about 12 hours. And actually, you look at the majority of games these days, 12 hours out of a title is pretty good going, really. So, I can't complain that much. I especially can't complain when I paid 30 quid for Child of Eden, which was like a 2-hour experience. I did get a t-shirt when I got that game, but, and I mean, I was still not too frustrated by that, because I had a wonderful time with that game and got more than enough replay value out of it. But, yeah, really, any sort of rhythm game is always going to be, you get out what you put in.
This game also kind of serves double purpose. I just saw a Kotaku article that went up that said, you know, just like how Sora's memories slowly go away over his time in Castle Oblivion, I too forgot what the hell happened in half the Kingdom Hearts games. And this game gives a little bit of a reminder of the story up to this point. It serves also as a nice little, hey, this is actually everything, so if, you know, you want to play through Kingdom Hearts 3, or, you know, you want to catch up a bit, this is a nice reminder game as well.
Yeah. Funnily enough, there was actually a DLC called Remind not too long before Melody of Memory came out, and yeah, that was a lot of redone stuff as well for the most part. But anywho, here is the world map. We go through games in release order, pretty much. And why don't we go back to the main menu, where we can just show you what options are on display here.
You probably are going to want to just have a look at the options to make sure that, you know, you've got the right settings for you. As it is a rhythm game, people react to sound differently, and people have different abilities when it comes to timing, so also for the fact of sometimes you might have a TV that lags a little bit, you can adjust for that. And I mean, it's good that they have got that option in there.
Alright, story mode a go-go. This is basically just going to be a nostalgia-filled Christmas, really. And as we go through each world, I guess we can talk about our experiences with the franchise. Tanner, what was your first experience with Kingdom Hearts like, mate? Playing the game and whatnot?
So I didn't actually get to play the game till much later, when it came out on the PS3, as that was my first Sony system. But my first time playing Kingdom Hearts was actually, there was one time where I had to go to my grandma's for Christmas, but this is my grandma who lives like 5 days away. And it was a road trip, and I got a gaming magazine, and in that they had a full text walkthrough of the full game of Kingdom Hearts 1. And when I say full, I mean like this was a 20-page game facts guide with pictures. And because there's not much to do on that trip, I ended up reading it over and over and just thinking to myself, this game sounds so amazing. Shame I'll never be able to play it, being a kid who only had, as I said, the Nintendo consoles back then. But once I actually went to play it, it was after I watched the HellfireComms playthrough, and so a lot of it was, you know, the nostalgia of reading it as a kid, mixed in with the nostalgia of watching the commentary, and overall just playing a very nostalgic game, so it was a fun experience to say the least.
So I was not quite immediately on the Kingdom Hearts train when it came out, but I wasn't that late to the party. in the sense of it must have been around 2003, 2004, so about a year or two after the original game had come out. But I distinctly remember that in junior school, some friends of mine were talking about it, and specifically they were talking about the Cave of Wonders in Agrabah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing about it and being intrigued, but not really understanding quite what they were talking about. Because obviously, I mean, you try and explain Kingdom Hearts, hey, AAA plus, brilliant. And I was fascinated, but not as fully invested as I probably could have been. But then we used to play Kingdom Hearts in the playground, and I think I always ended up being goofy.
Huh?
I don't know why, but that is just what happened. This is what happens when you've got kids playing in playgrounds.
I'm going to need the specifics of how you played Kingdom Hearts on the playground, mate.
You pretend to be the characters, and you basically live-action role-playing.
Tom, you've seen the parking lot. You know exactly how it goes.
Dual-wield.
Yeah, so, but obviously kids, so it's cute and it's fine. But in terms of actually playing the game, it must have been, I'm assuming it has to be around 2004, because it was before Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, and I went round to one of these friends' houses, and we actually sat down, and he showed me the final boss of the game, because of course that's the first thing that you show someone in a video game, but I was really intrigued about it from that point, and then sort of played the start of it, and then, yeah, went and got it myself, and was a fan ever since. The reason I say that it must have been around 2004 is because I think he had Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance at that point, but didn't really sort of discuss it fully. And yeah, I've been with the franchise ever since, and have played every game in the series outside of the original Chain of Memories, and obviously the original Coded, because that was just impossible. Also the original Kingdom Hearts key, but that was also because, you know, Japan only. Hey. But it's been a wonderful, crazy ride, and I would not have it any other way.
So, this game here is made by Indies Zero, who are probably most known for their work on the Theater Rhythm games, which has actually started off as, before they realized, you know, we kind of did everything we wanted to with Theater Rhythm Curtain Call and Theater Rhythm Dragon Quest, and especially the Theater Rhythm arcade game. So when they were looking at this, because of course Yoko Shinomura was like, I really want there to be a Kingdom Hearts rhythm game, I worked hard on this, please. So they decided to instead go with this approach of making it much closer to a Kingdom Hearts action game, which you can really feel if you even played the demo, where you press the attack button, and you're like, oh wow, this feels like Kingdom Hearts!
Yeah, like, you press the button, the sort of swings the keyblade, you press the jump button, he jumps, you press the fucking triangle button, he does like magic or whatever. That one was much harder, and you may have already been able to tell already if you've listened to the remixes on 1.5 and 2.5 final mixes, but these are the original midis. I know this in particular because Busted Up the Beach's remix has some really good guitar work, but it's a good piece of music in its own right.
There's only one real song that makes me a bit sad it's not the remixes, and let's just say it's a song that people like to pirate online.
Led by a mysterious voice, Sora stepped through the door that marked the start of his journey.
So yeah, Kairi is technically the main character of the game. She's the narrator, does all the narration for the recaps and whatnot. Who knows, maybe you'll get to play as her towards the end. We'll see.
I am still holding out for a proper Kairi action title. I think she more than deserves it at this point.
Deserves is a bit of a funny word to use for a fictional character, don't you think?
Yes, but in the sense of, when you look at the broad span of the cast of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, pretty much most of the key players...
Key players.
have had their moment to properly shine, I suppose. But Kairi as a character really has been just continually screwed over. It was only really the Remind DLC that really did anything to make her have any more sense of agency. And I think that that's probably the one thing, because she does end up coming across as not the physically weakest character, although you could make an argument for that, but in terms of the overall strength of the quality of the character, she is the weakest because she's just not given as much development time, and also she just doesn't have as much action or just time in general spent with her to give her a chance to shine.
I think one of my favorite depictions of Kairi is actually in the Kingdom Hearts 2 manga.
Oh, yeah.
Where they, instead of making her be, very much a damsel in distress during that whole time, she gets a lot of character development, she even does some fighting. It's a lot better than what you get in Kingdom Hearts 2, and so I hope going forward they take a little bit from that as a way, to do her character, because there's some stuff in Kingdom Hearts that makes me believe that we're gonna see a bit more Kairi in the future.
Would be nice. Also, now that you mention the manga, that manga is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And also actually highlighted certain plot elements that hadn't been introduced in the games but were introduced later, like the fact that the organisation did actually have hearts.
Well, I mean, I still stand by the best way to play Days is just to read the manga, because not only do you get the story, you get hilarious art and just really nice character moments that are more fleshed out than in a Monster Hunter-ish multiplayer kind of thing.
Yeah, Days is an odd one. It's definitely not one of the best Kingdom Hearts titles in the world. Although I remember really enjoying it at the time. I suppose this is what to sort of throw out to everybody, because it's often a topic of conversation, but what would you say is your least favourite Kingdom Hearts game?
Well, before I answer that, Night of Fate, pretty tricky to get the beat down on, even if I were playing on my own, so we're just going to move on from this. I don't want to do any redos if I can help it, and I, completed all the missions anyway, so that's really all I care about until I go back and play it on my own. Least favourite Kingdom Hearts? It's probably going to have to be Days.
That is fair.
Personally, for me, it would be Recoded, just because Re-Chain of Memories, because I would much rather play the original Chain of Memories. I feel like it just works better on the small screen versus when you're playing it on the PS2 version, where the arenas are huge and it just feels big and empty, and I don't think it uses the card system as well, but hey, that's just my, hot take that I get ratioed on Twitter for.
No, I have to say, I would agree with you, Tanner, that Re-Chain of Memories is my least favourite. Obviously, I've not got the original Chain of Memories to make the direct comparison against, but yeah, it's the same thing of the areas, the worlds just sort of feel too big and empty and samey, because obviously they're all block-based, but then also I just never really jibed that well with the card system. It just felt like we're able to do this better in every other Kingdom Hearts game. This just feels like you are making my life more difficult for the sake of it. Obviously, when you had it was on the GBA, it sort of made sense that you couldn't have a direct matchup, because, come on, it's the GBA. It could do a lot, but it couldn't do that.
Then again, it could do PS2 cutscenes, which was the wildest thing I've ever seen. I remember bringing that to school just to show my friends, and them being like, how is this game playing these cutscenes? And all I would say is, Square Enix blood magic.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I mean, you had no voice work or anything in the original one, but it was pretty crazy. Also, there was music in Riku's ending that is not present in the PS2 version for some reason.
And even though there was no voice acting in those cutscenes, there was the voice acting in combat, which was another thing that made me go like, whoa, like you have Sora doing all his battle shouts and stuff for each of the different magics, and you're like, there's a lot in the presentation for that game that really pushes that system to its limits.
I mean, I suppose that is something that Square Enix has pretty much consistently done with the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Obviously, there are times where they've, taken the slightly easy road out. I mean, we're looking at a pure example right now.
Debatable.
But they've always generally pushed the systems that they use to the max. I mean, like, Days and Recoded, oh boy did they push those DSs to do things that you didn't expect them to be able to do. And I'd say the same with, like, Birth by Sleep on the PSP. Like, that was pushing that console to the max.
No, I agree. Even Days, which, like I said, is my least favourite, I don't think it's a bad game. Maybe I was disappointed because when Days was announced alongside Birth by Sleep and the original Coded for Japanese mobile phones, it was basically, it's all about the organization, you get to learn more of them, and I love them in Kingdom Hearts 2. So when Shion came prancing along, and it was like, now we learn about a new character instead of, Roxas and Axel. I was a little bit disappointed, but not only did the story of Days grow on me over time, but Shion as a character did as well.
Ultimately, that's the thing with Days, is that they pitched it as this is a game about the organisation, which it wasn't. It was a game about Roxas and Axel, and obviously Shion. And it's that whole thing of people's expectations and how that affects the perspective that people then have on a game that comes out.
Yeah, let's save the rest of this talk for when we actually get to Days. The synthesis system. If you've played any Kingdom Hearts game, you should be familiar with this. You get items, some are rarer than others, and mix them together to create new items. This is how you create endgame level weapons, like Ultimate Weapon, and so on. And in Melody of Memory, you can use it to create items, but also music as well. These are memory dives right here.
There are some field battles in there as well, but yeah, they are all optional songs that you can get, and obviously if you want to play all 150 songs that are in the title, yeah, you're going to have to get those.
There's also profile cards, which can be used for online stuff, as well as collector's cards, which are a large collectible that, show off some Keyblade designs, they show off some key moments, literally just screenshots of cutscenes, but hey, they remind you of the moments. And you collect them through basically like a gacha system, where you say, hey, I want a Station of Awakening, and then you not only get one Station of Awakening, you get either a gold or platinum one, meaning that you gotta collect them all.
Yeah, also Tom, don't go with the star because there's a mission for clearing the thing without items.
Ah, thank you. Good looking out, mate. See, this is why you gotta pay attention, or at least hire someone like Richie to pay attention for you.
The missions that you get in this game, each song has 3 missions, so you can get a maximum of 3 stars from each song. They will allow you to unlock different gates throughout your journey. It's variable, sort of how many stars you will need. For most of the gates, you need to get stars in that particular game stretch. So the first batch, obviously you can only do the Kingdom Hearts 1 songs, but by the time you get to Kingdom Hearts 2, you need to complete missions in Kingdom Hearts 2 in order to continue. The requirement isn't excessive. Like, I certainly did not 100% go out of my way to try and get every single mission completed when I was playing the game, but you will probably have to do a little bit of replaying certain songs if you do want to unlock every song, particularly because in order to unlock the last round or the sort of special group of songs, you will need a grand total of 280 out of the 345 stars. So that's not the easiest task, because some of the missions are quite challenging, but it's certainly possible.
For the most part, the missions pretty much come down to play it well.
Yeah.
Like, with a few exceptions being collect a total number of items or defeat a total number of opponents, which may require you to actually replay a level just to, bring that number up. For the most part, if you're getting all excellence and hitting everything right, you'll probably get at least 2 of the 3. If you miss a note, sometimes that'll be like, there's ones where it's like, hit all of this thing. So if you miss one of those, then you fail that. But otherwise, for the most part, you'll get them all naturally just by doing a good job. And I'd say playing on the normal difficulty, which is a very well-balanced difficulty in my eyes. It's just difficult enough that you can, have a problem every now and then with a harder mission, but for the most part, you just have it's a fun time going through. If you just play on that, you'll probably get most of them.
So, Traverse Town. Tanner, what's your opinion of this world and how it's been used in the Kingdom Hearts franchise? Also, what's your take on the Lady and the Tramp statue? Is it just fancy scenery, or is it a memorial to the fallen?
Oh wow, I never even considered that there's no actual Lady and the Tramp stuff. Huh, okay. Don't have much opinion on that part. But as for Traverse Town itself, so I really like when an RPG has a proper, town that you can go to, the town, where it's like, okay, I want to do my items and stuff. And I was a little disappointed in how, in Kingdom Hearts 1 at least, it didn't fulfill that niche enough, I felt, where, you had the main area where you had the few shops there and stuff, but for the most part, I was like, I kind of wish it leaned more town and less dungeon, because as soon as you exit the main area, it's like, well, there's enemies, there's, stuff you gotta deal with. I was like, I think Hollow Bastion in Kingdom Hearts 2 accomplishes that idea better, but that's just my personal opinion. That's one of the reasons why I heavily dislike Skyward Sword, is because it's like, yeah, you have the one town, but any other town is not really there. So that's just how I feel. I like its aesthetics a lot in the 3DS game, Dream Drop Distance there, because it added more to it to make it more town, even if it was all dungeon, but I liked it more because it showed a lot more of it, and it showed that, yeah, there's some hip and happening places around.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I'm probably more okay with the original Traverse Town in the sense of, I suppose by that point in my gaming journey, I hadn't played too many, well, if any at all, Japanese RPGs, so it wasn't necessarily ingrained in me to expect that, so I was much more ready to just accept the world as it was. But that said, I do much prefer its appearance in Dream Drop Distance. I think there feels like there's more to it as an area, and I think the bits that they added were just really fun and exciting additions to the world that extended it beyond what was really possible.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great starting world. I feel it blends Disney and Square, properties together, the feelings of both franchises in a way that gets you off on the right note. Technically, you start in Destiny Islands, but this is where I would say the story begins, properly, and whatnot. And in that regard, yes, I give it 2 Mickeys out of 2 Mickeys.
That's 4 ears.
It is. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good with these missions.
I would say that for the most part, the experience that I had was that pretty much all of the Kingdom Hearts 1 missions are pretty simple in the grand scheme to get. Obviously, there's a couple of more challenging ones, but in all likelihood, you are gonna get the majority of them if you just play relatively well. The second you get out of Kingdom Hearts 1 is where you start to get more of those ones where you've got to play the level X number of times in order to get enough enemies to meet a certain criteria. which I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of those mission types, if only because they're not so reliant on your skill. It is purely based on how willing you are to repeat the same thing again and again and again. And while, obviously, it's a rhythm game, you are, of course, going to repeat things, because that's just how it works. That's how you get your replay value in a rhythm game. But I'm very much of the opinion of, let me decide to do that myself. Don't try and strong-arm me into it, because then I just get a little bit annoyed.
The nice thing, though, is that just like the theater rhythm games, this game has a constantly rising, player level meter. And so, because of that, just playing levels will contribute to your overall score and continue to unlock stuff. And it doesn't matter kind of what mode you're in, what difficulty, if it's a new thing or an old thing, you're always raising that music level that you see at the end there. And so no matter what, you're constantly getting rewards for it, which is, that was one of the things that when I played a lot of Theater Rhythm Curtain Call, that was really nice to just be rewarded for doing anything, which was a real nice thing for them to put in. And this game even has something similar to one of my favorite features, which is in Curtain Call there was a thing where every day there'd be a featured song, and if you played it, you got bonus points. So that is also in here, where if you play the song of the day, you get some extra points, and you can even work towards, if you're on the PlayStation version, a trophy.
That trophy is quite challenging, actually, because it's beats all 5 of today's tunes, as they're called, with a full chain. So, for those of you who aren't aware, a full chain basically just means you cannot miss a note. So, Tom got a full chain on this very song.
Hey.
Which, perfect timing, thank you so much for doing that.
Well, I remember my experiences with guard armor and whatnot well enough to get through that track to the beat, good and proper, clear without items. Oh darn, that's what I get for not paying attention.
Yeah, and also I was busy looking at something else at the time, so I couldn't forewarn you.
Just how it is sometimes. There we go, simple and clean. A different version from the one we saw in the cold open. This is the full one, I believe.
So the Memory Dive version is the full version of Simple and Clean. The Field version is a much shorter version that goes up to, I think, the end of the first chorus, pretty much. That's a pretty consistent thing that happens for most, all of the main Kingdom Hearts lyric themes that appear in the game, and I believe also for all of the boss battle themes that appear in the game. It is not the case for all of the memory dives, because they are separate beasts, and it is also not the case for some of the special unlockable songs that you can get that have actually never featured in a Kingdom Hearts game, which it's weird that they're here, but I'm glad that they are, but I wish that all of them were in their full version, but that's another discussion for later.
It would be nice, Oh, collector level increased, get you! Oh, we don't have the museum yet, but I guess that will be for next time. This is the end of the quick look, y'all. Basically part 1 of the playthrough, so come back tomorrow for another part. Here's everyone who's currently players. I'm not going to do what we usually do and give you our full thoughts on the game, because we haven't played the full game and whatnot. But suffice it to say, I'm really liking what we have here so far, and thank you again, Gold Member, for commissioning this. And I guess we'll stop here, and we'll see you tomorrow for more Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. Bye for now.